Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Eurita Taylor, author of His Strength in My Weakness, A Journey of Brokenness, Breakthrough, and Transformation. Welcome to Unleashing Unlimited Power. Today, we have a guest from Piers in Antigua, Miss June Jackson. She's here with us today to talk about Shattered American Dream. Welcome, June.
Hello, welcome, thank you, and welcome to you as well. Thank you for having me. It is indeed a pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm doing great.
So let me get this straight. You were 2 years behind me in Pierce Secondary,
Correct.
and you live. Okay, now I have no sense of direction, but I'm going to say it's the east because west, the houses were not that close, but you were to the east of Pierce School, correct?
Correct, correct. Not to the
Okay.
immediate, but 2 houses away.
Okay. So I'm right on track here.
Correct.
It is
That's
great
right.
to have you. It's good to have you. Now I hear Pierce is celebrating their 50th year.
Yes, they are. It is sad that I didn't get a chance to be a part of it. There's quite so much going on at work. And I did really need a vacation, to be honest with you. I haven't had a serious vacation in 3 years. So I needed some time away. But I did tune into the church service that they had via Zoom. And it was quite good. It was interesting to see the president in our uniform, you know?
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, once again, welcome. It's just great to have you on the show. So today we're going to talk about, like I said, Shattered American Dream. Um,
Mhm.
Tell us about a little bit about you to start. Tell us just a little bit about you.
Okay, as you rightfully said, to the east of Pierce Secondary School, Pierce Village in Antigua and Barbuda. And I grew up in a small home with three other siblings, my mom and my dad. And our background was centered around church. You know, when you raise up in a Christian home, what you know is church and school, you know. So that was my environment, you know. I did go to Pierce Secondary and thereafter, I went to the University of South Carolina. And that is where I was studying business management. And that is where my journey educationally started. Then coming back to Antigua and becoming a teacher, which is something I wanted to do from an early childhood, you know, and going back to teaching at my own school, here, secondary school, you know. So that was just something that was really, really good in terms of me going back to my school and basically giving back, if you want to call it that, you know, even though you're being paid to be a teacher. But it was indeed a pleasure going back to my own home school, my alma mater, you know. So that was my journey, basically going back into the teaching arena, which was not really, and you know, I could not deal with it after a while because my mom passed, and she was the
To hear
cafeteria,
that.
you know, the cafeteria lady, as we call it, at the same school that I was teaching. So that really had it put a damper on me, and I really could not deal with going back, not seeing her, you know. So I actually went into the private sector, where I was accounts payable and receivable clerk at one of our only airline catering company in Antigua, Goddard Catering. I was there for like 16 years thereabouts, you know. So that was where my life took me for 16 years, and then back into teaching because you know sometimes when you want stability with your children and you
Yes.
realize, okay, I'm in this particular age, and to be honest with you, you want to make certain you give your children what you would not have gotten. You would have
Right.
gotten some, but not all, you know. So for me, it took me back to making a decision of stability, giving my children time. And I actually went to teach office administration, my pet peeve, because I mean, I believe in office administration, business management. That is just me, you know.
Right.
And there I was at God Center, moving from the office administration tutor and then to the job placement coordinator. And now I'm the executive director of the center. So
Nice.
it's quite a journey, a successful journey, let me say that, in terms of my career and also my path of work experience.
Good. Good. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna go into the topic. And like I said, we're just having a conversation, okay? So how
Yes.
did you meet your husband and when did you? Ex-husband, sorry.
I met my husband in 1988. It's interesting, when you speak about that kind of journey because meeting him was in church, you know.
Okay.
As I said to you, it's church, camp, revival services. I don't know if you remember those times when
Yes,
church had
yes.
revival services and you got to go. And I actually met him in my fifth form year. Actually, we went to a revival service, and you just talk to somebody just casually. But I knew my parents and what they stand for. So I ensured that our conversation was very casual and that our conversation wasn't really speaking about boyfriend and girlfriend because that's the term we use in Antigua, boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that is where I actually met him in church, actually. So we both were a part of the church.
Was this kind of like
Um,
love at first sight for you?
for me, I would say that. I would say it's love at first sight. And growing up, you have this concept of your journey as an adult. I don't know if you do it, Dr. Taylor, but I would say to myself, the guy that really wins my heart and even more my intimacy, let's put it that way, he's going to be my husband.
Right.
That was the only male I ever knew in my entire life. I knew no other male in my entire life. So that was the person who ended up. Um, I will take you to a journey that is so interesting because I can recall going to making a decision to do something with my life educationally. And that is where I applied for a scholarship and got the scholarship to the University of South Carolina. And it's interesting that in my last year, we reconnected again, because they have this term, long distance relationship does not last. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it is a
Yes.
struggle. And for me, I wanted to focus on my education because I had a father who would say, when I spend money, I want justice. And he didn't mean it in a negative way. He meant it that when you spend money on your education, you have to ensure you get what you are supposed to get, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck in my mind throughout my journey until that last year when I was to graduate, like the December. We connected probably about the Valentine's evening. Somebody gave me my number who I used to, that time you were writing letters, and didn't have cell phone that kind of way. So I wrote a letter to a friend and she gave him my number, connected. So the connection came back again, and that is where it actually started all over again. Start to think about, your feelings for this person. So yeah, it was just interesting. The evening, oh, the evening before my graduation, I can recall I got a phone call from my dorm coordinator who said to me, "Oh, there's somebody here to see you." And I'm like, "See me?" I didn't expect nobody to come see me. You understand me, Dr. Taylor? It's just you would understand. And I'm like, nobody in South Carolina other than my peers. Anyway, I said, okay, no problem. And of course, I'm a person, I like to be prepared. So I did not go anywhere without ensuring that I'm dressed properly. So I went down to the hallway because you had to go 5 floors down. And there I saw this gentleman in front of me, and I'm like, how did you get here? You know, that's another story about his journey to get into me. The evening of my graduation, he bought a engagement ring. And that was my graduation gift. Yes. So,
Nice.
it was just,
So,
yeah,
so you walked across the platform to get your diploma, very excited, and then even more excited because you just got engaged. So it's safe to say you
exactly.
on cloud nine.
Exactly.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, that's awesome.
it was just something different. And then to hear the journey, when you start to catch up, how did you get here? How did you know I'm here? How did you find my address? You start asking questions, but that was a lot. That's another long story.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
that was awesome. That was really
Yes.
nice. I know I would have been blown away. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that was like your Cinderella ball right there for you.
Yeah, and after the graduation, what actually happened, I was staying with a family, a husband and wife, who he's a bishop, you know, and I actually had to introduce him to them, and they were like, "How did he get here?" Because South Carolina is just down the road, you know, catching all these different flights and in transit to get to a particular location, you know. So I did introduce to them, you know, because I was actually living with them at one point before I went on my own. So, and they were, I mean, they were elated of the whole journey. We actually went dinner together as a family, you know. But yeah, that journey was different. It was. It was.
So how soon did you get married after the engagement?
But actually, after I came back home, we decided to start working on our own home because his concept was that you should not get married and live in a rent house. You should get married and live in your own house. So we started
Good
speaking
man.
about drawing a plan and building the house out of your own pocket, meaning every week or every month you would buy materials to do something because his family
Right.
has that background, contractual background. So they were able to, on a weekend, I would say, okay, I'm going to cook this weekend. Let's work on the foundation, you know? So it was that kind of thing that, you know, that really showed, should I say, like mind at that time, that we both wanted the same thing. So it took like about a year and a half before I actually got married because we wanted to finish the home.
Right.
Yes, yes,
Oh, I applaud that. That was really good. Trying to get your
yes.
own home as opposed to living in a rental home. That was really good. So let me ask you, you guys got married. Up until that point, it was fairy tale, it was good, everything was working, coming together very nicely. You guys got married. How long were you married before you had children?
About, let me see, 93, about 5 years actually. And those were the best years of my life, right? Those were the best years of the marriage, let's be honest. And
Nice.
that's something as women, we need to be honest in terms of, you know, when there is good and when there is bad. You can speak about
Right.
the good moments, but you also can speak about, you know, you don't have to be so intimate about the bad moments, but you can speak about it
Right.
knowing that you would have gone through a journey. I mean, those 5 years were awesome. I mean, because we didn't owe anybody for a home or anything that we
Right.
had in the beginning.
Right.
I mean, I was going to Puerto Rico, I was going to St. Thomas, you know. You were just traveling because at that time, hey,
No
you did not
children.
have responsibilities per se, you know.
Right. Right.
And those were the first 5 years of that journey. You know, it was good. I can be honest with you. Yes. My first
So
daughter is I had in 98, you know, 1998, which was 5 years after we got married.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So what changed?
Sometimes in life, and to be blunt like this, sometimes in life we don't see what we're supposed to see when we're in love. We think with our heart
I
and not
agree.
really,
I
you
agree.
know. Young, you're in the church, you're in every almost every activity for church. You teach Sunday school, you're on the board, you know. Sometimes these things are not really the you're not hoping that it happened, you're not wishing that it happened, but you think that you would have addressed any issues at the onset, you know, and things get away that you did not realize that never what should I say, the term should I use, it never stopped, it came into the marriage, if you see what I'm saying.
Right.
So lifestyle is a funny thing when you're not mature enough to realize this. And I changed the way I think. I changed the way I should act. I changed the way that I should behave because I now have a family. So sometimes it's not really easy for some people to look at it and say, okay, this is how I should be behaving as a mature, let's say, married man, married woman. Because it goes both ways for
Right.
some relationships, you know. So it's like you lost track of what should happen. You know you're doing the right thing. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're washing, you're taking care of the children, you know. But there's some situations that you did not observe that was going on, and you take it as okay. I mean, my partner is always working, you know. and you think that it is the right thing to do because you're taking financial care of your family at that time. So
Right.
sometimes things can be, well, just go through the door without you realizing that, hey, this is something for an eye opener or a red flag for you to zoom into, you know. So it was like a year, into the 6th year thereabout, you know, that things started looking different. We started observing inconsistencies in our conversations. Um, why should something simple tick you off, if you want to call it that? Why should something so simple make you angry? Why should you want to work 24/7? You have a family. Where is your family time? So sometimes these things, we lose track of them when we think that our partner or ourselves are doing the right thing to take care of our family financially, you know? So yeah, that was a hard one because it keep occurring. Why the arguments at this point in time in your life? You know, I mean, you're going to have differences, and we all have difference of opinion, you know. But at the same time, there's some things that you think that should not tick off your partner, it does, you know.
Right.
And sometimes you don't realize there's a reason or a rationale for it until it gets later in this later somewhere down the line. You realize, oh, so that's the reason why you got upset because you had an ulterior motive, you know. So yeah, so that was the situation at the time.
Did you guys consider counseling? Was there premarital counseling?
Um, as I said earlier in our conversation, everything for me is church, right? For
Right.
me, my home was a place where any pastor that is coming to Antigua, who is coming, whether for training or for anything, they would my home would be a home. Anybody would call and say, you have space for 2 weeks for so and so, you know? And I
Uh-huh.
would say, sure, no problem. I mean, and I would host them. I would cook, I would make certain they're fine. Even I laugh many times that one of my friends who got married to a pastor, he said the first person to iron what we call the pastor's gown when they were being ordained was me. You know? So I mean, you laugh at that journey,
That's a
but
lot of
it's
ironing.
yes, because that's you talking about almost 10 yards of fabric.
A lot of
And guess
material. Yes. I remember
it
what they
was
wear.
no creases at all, you know. So you know, sometimes when you think about it, you say to yourself, wow, that was really a journey, you know. But these are the pastors of who I connected to quite a lot. And there's one pastor in particular who, well, he's my daughter's godfather up until now, because he considers my children his children. We used to talk, and there were times that he had to intervene in some of the inconsistencies in the arguing and stuff like that. So I mean, when you have someone whose ego would say, "I don't need nobody to counsel me; they need counseling themselves." Ah, you wonder, so do I really need counseling, or do I need counseling personally? Because it seems as if I am the issue, and you try to correct things about yourself, not realizing that it takes two to
Right.
make all this happen. It's
Yes.
not
Yes.
alone, And I
That
say
is
to
true.
children during the journey, I am not perfect, but one thing I can say to you, if I do something to offend someone, I am going to correct it. But sometimes you correct things that you're not to be blamed for, you know?
Yeah. To
So,
keep the peace. Most men, they don't agree to counseling. It's a male thing, pretty much. They Men are fixers, and they like
mhm,
to believe that they can fix the things that is wrong in the home. So
right,
your husband, ex-husband, I'm sorry, is not
right.
singled out in that aspect, because men on the whole, they do not like to be counseled. They really don't. And you will
Mhm,
find that when there's problem in the marriage, they said, we can fix that, we can work on that, but then they don't
yeah.
talk. So then
Mhm.
it creates another problem. They don't want to talk to someone else, and then they don't want to talk, but they rather just go and fix things in their way of doing it. So in their defense,
Right.
that's nothing against your husband, that one. So let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Who asked for the divorce?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't ask for a divorce. Um, I was tired of the irreconcilable differences to an extreme. It was to an extreme, you know. And it happened one day that I was so tired and fed up. I went to teach a class at Antigua State College, I remember. And I was up there and I'm thinking, Lord, I have to go home to all this arguing. And, you know, there were times that the arguing would have gotten to a level where it might have been violent, you know. And I said, Lord, I can't do this, you know. And I went home. I took up my children from school and I went home. And let me tell you what I took out of that marital home that we built together. I took my three children, I took their school clothes, an internet box, because they have to do their schoolwork, an
Right.
internet, and I went in my vehicle because I had my own vehicle, you know? And that's what I took. I did not know where I was going. I did not want my father, because as I said, my mom passed years ago. I did not want my father to know about it because you know how I don't know. There's some fathers who are very, very particular with their girl children. And I know that he would not take it lightly to know that, you know, this is what is happening, you know. I can say to you, though, it got really bad that um, I had to go to the police station and, you know, these kind of things. And people say, a woman like you who is very particular and you have to go to the police station, that is something because he came to my workplace and I tell you, it was not anything, I mean, just a cussing, you know? And I said to myself, no, I can't go home to that. And I took my children. Dr. Taylor, I didn't know where I was going. All I know, I had my vehicle. And one thing I said, Lord, I know I'm humble enough to stay in my vehicle. But I did not want my father to know then. It took a week of me being out of the marital home for him to find out. And, you know,
Okay, how
it is,
you manage that? Wait a minute, wait a minute, stay right there. How you manage that? Girl, we know Antigua is yay big. How you manage to stay a whole week without your dad finding out?
well,
Let
let
me
me
take
tell
a
you,
sip for this one. Go ahead.
let me tell you what happened. Godmother who is near and dear to my heart. When my mom passed, she said to my mom, she's going to take care of me. And my godmother lives in Canada. And I had a key for her home. So in case anybody comes down, I get it cleaned up and, you know, so they hear. And as I said, I had my internet box, my children's school stuff, their uniform, everything, whatever I had for them. And 3 days closed for myself because I had to go and teach, right? And I was in and out, bathing, making sure that they're good to go in my godmother's place until eventually I said it to her before my dad found out. But interesting enough is that where my godmother lives, it doesn't have the public utilities water. And when the current comes off, you cannot use it ever. It
Everything
uses up.
is off. Everything
So
is off.
yes, when my dad, so I was sitting down with him on the step and we were talking and everything. So I said to the children, well, you all just don't go bathe so that when you go home, you don't have to worry about that, you know. But then he noticed that 8 o'clock came and I was still sitting down there talking to them. And he knows that I'm not like that, you know. By the time it comes a particular time, I go home and take care of the children, homework, everything. But
Hmm.
because I knew there wasn't any electricity at that time, we did homework early. So I had enough time to sit and chat, you know. And he said, tell me something, what is really, really going on? He said, why are you not going home? You know? And that was because he knows when a father or mother knows their children, they know what you would and would not do, you know? And I said to him, you know, there's something I have to say to you. So I said, let's walk. So we walked to the entrance of the gate and we stood up there, we talked. And before I could speak, I broke down because I didn't want him to know that after so many years, and let me tell you, I walked out on my 20th year of marriage.
Wow.
20 years, and I
Wow.
walked and I left it. And he got angry, you know, and you know, fathers, you know, he was saying, well, this is not, what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna stay? I said, I'm fine. I already spoke to my godmother. She said, stay right where you are. Your home is my home, you know? So, and that is how he found out eventually, Dr. T. I had to hold it because I mean he didn't see me very often, but then he saw me on this particular day and I'm just casually sitting down talking, you know. So it was just different for him. So you can't tell your daddy a lie. You understand
Yeah.
me? That's another thing when he finds out, you know. So I had to be blank and point blank with him. So that is how he found out after a week. That's what
Oh,
happened. Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Was he upset?
He wasn't upset with me. He was upset with the situation and how it
Got
transpired,
it.
you know, and the fact that people who get involved with police and stuff like that. I said, you did all of this and nobody knew. I said no, because I know the kind of temperament you guys have. I know what may turn out of it. So I just kept it on the low. You know,
Right.
I,
Right.
I don't like confusion. Let's put it that way. So I would prefer to
Yeah.
suck it up, do what I have to do, and then move on.
So you've been divorced how long?
9 years.
9 years. Would you
Yeah,
say it
coming
have
on
affected
9 years.
you?
The
Come
30th
on,
of
nine
this month
years.
is going to make 9 years.
So your American dream got shattered. I apologize for that. So how did it affect your children?
Well, my children, the first two, had to go counseling. I had to take,
Okay.
especially my daughter, because she couldn't understand at that point. Now you're a single parent with three
Right.
children. You're accustomed to get everything you want because at that time there were two monies coming in the home. I mean, I had a really good job, but then it reached a point where you are now not in that kind of position, so things are going to change.
Right.
So it was
Right.
her at the age of 15. She was in third form actually when that happened, So I had to end up taking my son to a counselor. I had to take her to a counselor. It took a while for them to understand what was really happening. I think today my son has not given up the fact that the way I was treated, he can accept that. He said, I can't treat anybody's child like that, mommy. I can't, So that was a struggle for him. So to have a conversation with his father is a tense situation. Even though for me as a mother, I don't tell my children things about their father. I allow them to find out, what is
Yes.
happening. I
That's
that
best.
can be,
Yeah.
so I don't do that at all because you don't want them to feel like, oh, my mom is the perfect person and my dad is the villain. No, that's not what you want. But you want them to understand realistically, this is what transpired and this is what I saw for myself, you know. So he has a struggle still at his age. He's going to be 22 in December, and he still has a struggle coming to grips with the fact that this had to happen to both of his parents.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right. And I can only imagine that no matter what you say, it doesn't make it any easier because children, most of the times they gravitate towards their mom, especially the sons. I
right.
can relate. I can relate to that because my boys, I didn't tell them what happened. They
Hmm.
gravitated to me, of course, but then um, they still have this, yeah, energy, lots
Hmm.
of energy towards their dad. Yeah,
Right.
that was a really, really mature and wise decision you made, sending them for
Mhm.
counseling. I applaud you on that because
Yeah,
counseling, it doesn't have to just happen because you're directly involved in the situation. Sometimes, even
right.
if you're indirectly involved, it affects you. So that was a really good move. My voice is.
Yes, that's fine. Mhm. Yeah, but Dr. Taylor, what I've learned during my journey at that center is that I have to deal with young people who are vulnerable in many, 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 many ways. I mean, I see some things and it's not even funny, and you have to address it not only personally but finding professional persons to deal with the different issues that are there. And I did not want to live in denial where my children are concerned. So for me, I thought that was the best thing for them. And I wanted to allow them to speak without me being there for them to think, okay, I have to say what my mommy wants me to say. I had to step out of the room, which was the most painful part, and allow them to speak to a total stranger, even though I knew who the counselors were, male and female. I knew who they were, but still they would have to speak in my absence. But I didn't fear anything, because I know my children will be very blunt and straight up. Right now, my daughter, because of that journey, she writes well. So she will sit and she'll write poems. She will write journals upon journals, It takes my son, what you say, we say locally, force make water go uphill. If he reaches a point where he realizes that he cannot deal with it anymore, he will sit and he will write or he will draw. And that's
I
his
haven't
way of
heard
expressing.
that saying in a long time. Force make want to
And
go uphill. I haven't heard that
yeah,
in forever. But sometimes that's what it takes, especially with guys. Yeah. You gotta
yes,
force.
that is what happens. Yes, because they can be a little stubborn. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then they don't express themselves like the girls would. You know what is in a girl's heart because she will pour out herself to her mother. But boys are not, they're not like that. It takes a lot for them to really speak, and they will speak intelligently to make you feel like if you don't understand what they're saying. Because sometimes my son would use some words and I have to look at him and say, "You forget that I'm a teacher," because he would want to use terms that would make you feel as if you don't know the words that he's using. But
Or they could be
yeah,
like mine. Or they could be like mine. They talk street and they're like, "Man, you don't understand that. So it doesn't even make any sense. I talk to you because you don't understand what I'm saying to begin with anyway." So that's the way of popping out. Yeah. So
yeah,
they don't want to talk
yeah.
about
I
it.
think they're more
So
street smart than you are.
I know. So what's
Yeah.
your daughter's relationship with her dad?
Well, that took really a long journey for her because she was my daddy's girl, the first one. Um, the journey was really tough for her because during that time, okay, she had to study for CXC after a good 2 years after walking out. She had to study for CXCs, and all she knew, mommy had to be there morning, noon, and night, whatever class I have to go, whatever time class finishes. I mean, and the understanding that your daddy cannot be there was really difficult for her. I think what the breaking point for her was when she went to Antigua State College, where she realized that sometimes I'm in a meeting and she has to wait. And she realized, okay, if my daddy was around, I could have called him and asked him to
Right.
pick me up. But the fear of not able to relate to him made it difficult for her. It took her until she got to, because she actually went to Monroe, and it was really really a struggle for her because she had to be on her own. You
Right.
know, we ended up having to do it together because I reached a point where I said to her, "Listen, this is more than I can." Um, when I went to my lawyer during that journey, she said to me, "You have to have an amicable discussion with him where your children are concerned." She said, "No law would give you your children like that unless they know how they're going to be provided for." So she said to me, "Speak to him, even though you're angry." But there's one thing that stood inside of me, Dr. Taylor, was when a prayer partner of mine said, "Until you can forgive him, you would not
Yes.
be able to release him."
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I tell you, that was something I had to pray, 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 and ask God to give me a
Yes.
forgiving spirit
Mm-hmm.
until I be released. So I can tell you, we ended up having to speak whenever it comes to children, we're going to speak about it. I mean, there are times that sometimes I feel like I'm going to get annoyed with the responses at times, but I have to tell myself, okay, don't get angry. You're trying to resolve something. So, I have to speak to myself for me to really
Right.
deal with the matter because, as soon as one person gets ticked, everything else in the whole conversation, that's it. Everybody will start to shout. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
a shouter,
Yeah.
and I know the shouting match will come across from him. So, I mean, it was like, nah, I had to do something for my children. And I had to ensure that whatever I do by law, I'm doing the right thing. Because, when it comes to children, children have more rights than anybody else, you
Yeah.
know? So I had to ensure whatever I do is the right thing. And that is what actually my forgiving him allowed the children to start, my daughter, my first daughter, to start to feel. the urge to at least say something and speak about not what happens to her, but anything that's relating to her education
Right.
wise.
Right.
Yeah. And that, but now I can tell you, I keep saying to my children, because of that particular journey and the mature stance that I took where they're concerned and where he's concerned, we are friends. He can come and ask me anything where children are concerned. And to be
Good.
honest, I would think, well, okay, it's my brother. So I respond that way. You, I'm, no, come on now, come on now.
Whatever works and get the job done, right? Whatever
Yeah,
works and get the job done, so we get this conversation out the way.
yeah, we have to do it, and that is something that I learned along the journey. Just he's your brother now. He's your brother now, so speak to your brother properly. That kind of thing, just to ensure that the children, I mean, especially the last one, my last child is 13. She's still yearning for attention. That is
Yeah.
really a struggle for her to get because at the age of 4 now, she wasn't 5 yet, you
Yeah, when
know.
he left.
Yes, and it was a struggle for her. Even now, she's still trying to get his attention to realize when other children are with their dads, I feel away. You know,
Right.
I need to spend time with you. But because of that gap that was built between the age of five, say, let's round it off to 5 years,
Right.
5 years and 15. You're talking about approximately 8 years of not knowing the bond that you should have with your father. So it has been a struggle. It has.
What would you have done differently?
Oh wow, that's a good question. What
Yeah.
would I have done differently? First of all, I got married before I was 23. I was young. And I said to myself, just imagine, you don't even know nothing about life as yet, and you're getting married at that age. For me, I would have waited a little more to be a little more mature in terms of being able to make decisions that would, I mean, maybe I would have still been married if I was more mature into getting into the marriage. I could be wrong. But at the same time, you would be a little more wiser in terms of how you
Right.
respond to things. But the tolerance level would have been built as well so that you're able to know how to deal with it. So, I mean, for me, maybe I would have waited a little later on in life before I got married if I was to do it all over again.
I love your answer. As you're speaking, I'm thinking, I myself got married young. I was 22. And you're right. It takes a mature mind to get married that young, and both have to be on the same page. And when it's
Correct.
not, it makes things really harder. But you're right.
Mhm.
A little bit older would mean maturity, as well as your tolerance level would have been different. So I
Correct.
agree with that. I got married at a young 22, and you tell yourself, when you're going to be married forever, I have my American dream, my husband, my white picket fence, my children, my dream job. And then when everything goes crazy, it's like everything comes shattered down. So I mean, I
Correct.
understand exactly what you mean by that. Um, Let
Right.
me ask you another question. What do you believe, in your opinion, is the number one problem in marriages today?
Communication. You see,
Yeah.
communication is always going to be a challenge, especially when both parties, your background are different. And when you come from varying backgrounds, where, okay, maybe I'm accustomed to communicating because I am accustomed to communicate. My whole childhood years going to school, they call me my daddy because everything I say to them, my daddy will do that. My daddy will do that. Not that I don't have a good communication with my mom, but for me, I think my father, he would sit down, because you have a hard-working mother, he would sit down and ensure everything is handwriting is perfect. You adding correctly. You're doing mental arithmetic. And I think the communication between my father and I is something that was very strong. It allowed me to be able to know how to communicate. I can sit down and communicate with any male friend of mine, and we have a good conversation because I listen to my father and how he speaks and his expectation. And one thing he always says to us: communication is key in any marriage. Because before my mom passed, they were married for like about 38 years before she passed, and he always stresses communication. So that is something that stuck with me. And I mean, you can have communication where you disagree, but at the same time, you can understand at the end of it, all of us have difference of opinion. We just got to respect each other. So that would be my take on that.
So you had this relationship with your dad. So I'm gathering you were hoping that your children or even your both daughters had the same relationship with their dad.
Uh-huh, exactly. And for me, what was very, very strong in the latter part of the separation, when we were separated for a while, and my dad used to be the one who would use my vehicle because as I say, sometimes I'm in so many meetings, and I would leave the vehicle with him and say, they have to finish, this one finished school that time, that one finished school that time, and he would pick them up. And when he picks them up, they have a conversation. And I
Nice.
said to you, foundation, it's when it comes to spirituality and the Bible, when they reach home by him and they finish, he makes sure they finish, eat and everything, do their homework. And when he's finished with them, they're sitting down on the bed and he have them memorizing scriptures that he would have done with us as a child. So they created a bond with him that was, I mean, even my last daughter had that bond with him before he passed. So
Right.
they were able to get the actual latter years of a father from my father, which is their grandfather. So that is very strong in terms of their lifetime of being with a father. We wouldn't say fatherless, but an absent father.
Yeah. You said one thing about the difference in culture, it being different.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, bear with me, my voice.
Hmm.
You said one thing about the culture. What did you
Hmm.
mean by that? The difference in culture.
In our culture, let's take it Antigua, Caribbean people. You know how Caribbean people are when it comes to family. And I think being raised in a home with a mother and father who is married and looking around at some of your friends who had that same situation, you're able to connect because culture can be your way of life. And my way of life is a mother and a father being in a home,
Right.
married and being in the home. And that is what I knew throughout all, even to my adult life, until my mom would have passed. Well, my dad passed 3 years ago as well. But that is what I knew from my early upbringing. So for me, it's like there is a connection culturally where we know that your mommy, your daddy gone home, or your mommy got to work, daddy gonna come home later. So there is always a connection between your mother and your father being in the same home. So when we look at a situation where now you didn't actually give it up, but you had to give it up,
Right.
and children don't know what it's like for even the adult life to have their mother and their father in a home. That is something that can be destructive mentally and emotionally for any young person. And we see that a lot in our young people, especially our girls, because I do watch some of my young people and I observe their conversation when they sit and talk with me. And even just recently, I saw a post by one of them that I would have thought that says, when a young woman yearns for the attention of her father and doesn't get it, and then all you see the emoji with the teardrops coming from the eyes. Um, that is painful,
Yeah.
really, really, really painful. So yeah, our Caribbean culture is not that. Yeah, we are close knit. Let's put it that way. Because sometimes we have extended families living in the same home. So if your father is not there, whether he passed or he rescinded his duties as a father, at least your uncle and your grandfather, they're there.
Right.
So there's
Right.
some father figure in the home that culturally we can gravitate to.
Yes. That is so true. And then when I was living in Antigua, I remember even the neighbors did their part because my mom,
Right?
if she's not there, then a cousin who lived next door or or
Correct.
just a neighbor friend or whatever, they would all chip in and help make sure hair get braided and we off to school on time. Yeah, you're right about that. That's taking me way back, remembering those years, and it's really good because going through a divorce, everybody kind of like, or any hardship, not just divorce, it could be death of a loved one or anything. Everybody chips in and they do their part and make sure your
Right.
kids are doing what they're supposed to do, be where they're supposed to be. It's nice.
Right.
It sounded like you really had a support system, and that was really good. Not only did you take your kids to get counseling, but you yourself, speaking to your pastor friend, was able to get some counseling on your own. That's really good, and I'm happy for you. I'm sorry about your dad. You said he passed away 3 years ago. I'm sorry about that. I know that must have been hard for you. Yeah.
It was, but at least, throughout the journey, him being sick, because he passed from prostate cancer, him being sick, I ensure that I'm there every day. The children knows what it's like to take care of their grandfather. You understand me?
Right.
So if we're not there, my sister and I or my brothers, whoever should be there, they take up the responsibility and look about their grandfather. So they were able to see what it's like to take care of a father, even though it's their grandfather.
Right. It sounds like you've instilled some very good values in them, how to care for each other, going to church, getting their schoolwork done on time. Sound like you did an awesome job. That's really good. I'm happy to hear that. June, excuse me. Oh my God. I'm sorry about my voice. It was
That's
okay
fine.
this morning, and then the devil tried to throw me off of this, and then the voice went crazy. But I'm sorry about that. Now I could see why you could relate to my story after your post and you put on Facebook about you being able to relate to my book, and it was really good. Now I see, and it always helps to know, not just that to hear someone going through something bad, but when we know that our problems are not singly ours, it helped to bear the burden. Because just hearing you tell
Correct.
your story makes me realize, okay, she's a strong woman and she did it with her children. And I'm sure that that's what you said when you read my book, that
Yeah, that was. Let me tell you, that was such a support because I think I saw it on
the
the
only
media,
thing is
social
I didn't have, but
media.
at least you had your family. Yeah, we froze for a minute. I think we're out of time right now, but I just want to tell you, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It was a great pleasure seeing you. Oh my goodness, you're taking me way back to peer school years. You look amazing
Thank
too.
you so
Now let me ask you one
much.
question.
Sure.
Let me ask you one question, and this is for my pleasure. Are you getting married again? Will you get married again?
Woo! I wouldn't say I wouldn't, but for me, God has to guide me to that process. And I think
Oh,
when and if I do, I know, the lessons learned.
yes. Plus, you're more
Yes.
mature now. You have some
Correct.
experiences, which I it sounds like you've learned from them because that's what experience is supposed to do. Teach us so that we see what we did versus what we
Mhm.
should have done. And I
Correct.
do hope you get married again. I really do hope you get married again because marriage is not all bad just because sometimes the end in divorce is not all bad. And you can
Right.
have your happily ever after. You can have your American dream. It can be had, and I hope that you get that. Once again,
Thank you.
thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. Oh my goodness, my voice is really going now. But it was a pleasure talking to you, June, and we'll have
Thank
to do this again sometime. We'll have to do
Sure.
this again sometime. Thank you guys for tuning into Unleashing Unlimited. Um, podcast with Dr. Eurita Taylor. Hope you guys enjoy yourself. Thank you, June, and have a good day.
Thank you, and to you as well. All the best.